You stand at the altar, heart racing, everyone smiling, cameras flashing. This is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. Everyone told you marriage would complete you, fulfill you, make everything better. But what if I told you that in exactly 3 years, you'll be sitting alone in your car, outside your own house, not wanting to go inside? What if the greatest philosophers in history tried to warn you about something nobody wants to hear? Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's most brilliant minds, never married. And before he died, he left behind observations about marriage so brutally honest that society has spent 2 centuries trying to bury them. He wrote that marriage means to have one's rights and double one's duties. But that's just the beginning. There are 10 harsh realities about married life that nobody tells you before you sign that contract. 10 truths that destroy the fantasy and reveal what you're actually getting into. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some of the smartest men in history chose to stay single, why divorce rates keep climbing, and why the happiest married people are the ones who went in with their eyes wide open. This isn't about hating marriage. This is about seeing it clearly. Because the truth, no matter how harsh, is always better than a beautiful lie that destroys your life. Reality number 1. Your freedom dies the moment you say, "I do." And I don't mean the obvious freedom to date other people. I mean something far deeper. The freedom to be yourself without constant negotiation. Schopenhauer observed that a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. Think about what happens after marriage. You want to spend Saturday working on your project, but it's our day together. You want to take that job opportunity in another city, but what about my career, my friends, my family here? You want to pursue that risky business idea, but we have a mortgage, we have responsibilities, we can't take chances anymore. Every single decision you make stops being yours alone. It becomes a negotiation, a compromise, a battle between what you want and what maintains peace in the relationship. And here's what nobody tells you. This negotiation never ends. It's not just big decisions. It's everything. What you eat, where you go, who you see, how you spend your time, what you watch, where you live, how you dress. Your entire existence becomes subject to someone else's approval. Schopenhauer saw this and realized that marriage transforms free individuals into bounded partners. You're no longer a complete person making autonomous choices. You're half of a unit that must function in harmony. And harmony, in practice, means whoever cares less about the specific issue gets their way. This isn't love. This is strategic warfare disguised as partnership. Reality number 2. The person you married will disappear within 5 years. Schopenhauer understood that humans are constantly changing, evolving, becoming different versions of themselves. He wrote about the deceptive nature of romantic love, how it tricks you into thinking you've found your perfect match, when you've actually found someone playing a temporary role. Here's what happens. During dating, everyone presents their best self. She's easygoing, fun, spontaneous, understanding. He's attentive, romantic, ambitious, patient. But these aren't complete people. These are performances, auditions for the role of spouse. After marriage, especially after a few years, the performance ends. The real person emerges. And the real person is tired, stressed, flawed, complicated. She stops pretending to love your hobbies. He stops pretending to care about her stories. The easygoing girl becomes controlling. The ambitious guy becomes complacent. And you look at this person and think, who are you? This isn't who I married. But Schopenhauer would tell you, you never married a real person. You married a projection, a fantasy, a temporary performance. And now you're legally bound to whoever they actually are underneath. Reality number 3. Sexual desire dies, and nobody knows how to revive it. Schopenhauer was brutally honest about this. He understood that sexual attraction is nature's trick to ensure reproduction. It's biological programming disguised as romantic connection. Here's the truth everyone avoids. In the beginning, you can't keep your hands off each other. The chemistry is electric. The attraction is overwhelming. Then you get married, then comes routine, then comes familiarity, then comes the slow death of desire. Year 1, still pretty good. Year 3, noticeably less frequent. Year 5, scheduled and obligatory. Year 10, basically roommates who occasionally have mechanical sex to maintain the illusion that you're still a couple. And both of you are lying about it. She pretends she's still attracted when she's mostly just tolerant. He pretends he's satisfied when he's fantasizing about other women. Neither admits that the passion is gone, because admitting it means confronting an impossible question. How do we live the rest of our lives with someone we're no longer sexually attracted to? Schopenhauer saw this pattern everywhere. He recognized that sexual attraction is temporary, but marriage is supposedly permanent. This creates a fundamental incompatibility that nobody wants to acknowledge. Reality number 4. You will resent each other, and resentment is poison. Schopenhauer understood that prolonged proximity breeds contempt. Living with someone day after day, year after year, you start to notice everything. Every annoying habit, every character flaw, every failure to meet your expectations. And these observations accumulate into resentment. She resents that he doesn't help enough around the house. He resents that she doesn't appreciate what he does provide. She resents that he plays video games while she handles everything. He resents that she spends money he earned while criticizing how he earns it. This resentment builds slowly, invisibly, like carbon monoxide poisoning. You don't notice it accumulating until it's already killing the relationship. And here's what makes it worse. You can't express it honestly, because expressing resentment leads to fights. So you swallow it, you suppress it. You pretend everything's fine while rage builds beneath the surface. Schopenhauer observed that most married couples live in a state of suppressed hostility. They're polite in public, cold in private. They've learned to coexist without actually connecting. They've mastered the art of looking happy while feeling miserable. Reality number 5. Your dreams will be sacrificed for stability. Schopenhauer saw marriage as fundamentally conservative. It's about building security, maintaining comfort, avoiding risk. But dreams, real dreams, require risk. Marriage kills this willingness. You want to quit your job and start that business? But we need health insurance, we need steady income. We can't risk everything on your dream. You want to write that novel, make that film, build that invention? But when? You have responsibilities, obligations, a family depending on you. You want to travel the world, live in different countries, experience different cultures. But we have a house, we have kids in school, we have roots here. Every dream you had before marriage becomes negotiable after marriage. And in most negotiations, the dream loses to the practical concerns. Schopenhauer understood that married life demands compromise, and the first thing you compromise is your potential. The person you could have become gets sacrificed for the person you need to be to maintain household stability. And now you're 40, 50, 60, looking back at all the things you didn't do, didn't try, didn't become, because you chose safety over possibility. Reality number 6. You will become invisible to each other. Schopenhauer wrote about the tragedy of familiarity. When you first meet someone, they're fascinating. You study them, learn them, discover them. But familiarity breeds blindness. After years of marriage, you stop seeing your spouse as an individual. They become a role, a function, a piece of furniture in your life. She stops being a woman with dreams, fears, and complexity. She becomes the wife, the mother, the person who handles certain household functions. He stops being a man with ambitions, struggles, and depth. He becomes the husband, the provider, the person who pays bills and fixes things. You stop having real conversations because you assume you already know what they'll say. Schopenhauer observed married couples who could sit in complete silence, not because they were comfortable with each other, but because they had nothing left to say. They'd exhausted their interest in each other years ago. And here's what nobody admits. This invisibility is lonely. You're living with someone, sleeping next to someone, spending your life with someone, but you feel completely alone because they don't see you anymore, and you don't see them. Reality number 7. Financial stress will poison everything. Schopenhauer understood that money conflicts are never really about money. They're about values, priorities, control, and respect. And marriage creates constant financial conflict. She thinks he's cheap. He thinks she's irresponsible. She wants to enjoy life now. He wants to save for the future. And beneath all these surface conflicts is a deeper issue. In marriage, your financial autonomy dies. Your money becomes our money. And our money means every purchase, every financial decision, every resource allocation becomes subject to negotiation, approval, judgment. Schopenhauer saw that money is power, and shared finances means shared power, which means constant power struggles disguised as budget discussions. The stress is relentless. Bills, mortgage, kids' expenses, unexpected costs, inflation, job insecurity. Financial pressure never stops. And when you're stressed about money, everything else suffers. You fight more, you have less patience, you feel trapped, you resent each other. Reality number 8. Your identity will be absorbed into the marriage. Schopenhauer warned about the loss of self that happens in prolonged relationships. You stop being an individual and become part of a couple unit. People stop inviting just you. They invite both of you. Friends stop asking what you think. They ask what you and your spouse think. You become one half of a married couple, expected to think alike, act alike, want the same things. Your hobbies become our hobbies. Your friends become our friends. Your time becomes our time. Your life becomes our life. And slowly, imperceptibly, you forget who you were before marriage. What did you like? What did you want? What made you happy? You can't remember because that person died years ago. They were absorbed into the collective identity of the marriage. Schopenhauer saw this as a kind of death. Not physical death, but the death of individual selfhood. And the worst part? Society celebrates this death. They call it growth, maturity, learning to be a team. But it's actually the erasure of everything that made you uniquely you. Reality number 9. The children will become your only common project, and when they leave, you'll discover you're strangers. Schopenhauer observed that many marriages survive only because of children. Kids provide a common purpose, a shared project, a reason to cooperate despite no longer connecting. You stop being lovers and become co-parents. You stop having conversations about ideas, dreams, feelings, and only discuss logistics, school schedules, doctor appointments, activities, discipline, education. Your entire relationship becomes about managing small humans. But Schopenhauer knew what happens next. The kids grow up, they leave, and suddenly you're sitting across from someone you barely know. 20 years have passed. You raised children together but stopped knowing each other. And now what? You're 50, 60 years old, stuck with a stranger you're legally bound to. You have no shared interests, no emotional connection, no passion, no friendship, just obligation, routine, and the terrifying question of whether you stay together out of inertia or finally admit this stopped being a marriage years ago. Reality number 10. You will face the ultimate question, is this all there is? And the answer will haunt you. Schopenhauer wrote about the tragedy of fulfilled desires. You spend years pursuing marriage, believing it will make you happy, complete you, give your life meaning. Then you achieve it. And after the initial excitement fades, you discover something terrifying. You're still you, still incomplete, still searching, still unsatisfied. Marriage didn't fix you. It didn't make you whole. It didn't provide the meaning you were seeking. And now you're trapped in a life you built around a false promise. You have the spouse, the house, the kids, the career, everything society said would make you happy, but you're not happy. You're exhausted, resentful, invisible, and wondering if you made a catastrophic mistake decades ago that you can never undo. Schopenhauer understood this existential crisis. He saw that people mistake temporary relief from loneliness for permanent fulfillment. These 10 realities don't mean every marriage is doomed, or that marriage itself is evil. What they mean is that marriage requires something most people don't have when they enter it: complete honesty about what you're actually signing up for. Schopenhauer didn't hate marriage because he hated people. He avoided it because he valued truth over comfort. He refused to lie to himself about what marriage demanded and what it provided. And that honesty, that brutal, clear-eyed assessment is what most people lack. They enter marriage drunk on romantic fantasy, high on social pressure, desperate to escape loneliness. They don't ask hard questions. They don't examine their motivations. And then reality hits. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly, gradually, like fog rolling in until you can't see clearly anymore. And by the time you realize what happened, you're so entangled in obligations, responsibilities, and commitments that leaving seems impossible. So you stay, you adapt, You lower your expectations. You stop hoping for happiness and start hoping for tolerable. This is what Schopenhauer saw everywhere he looked. Married couples who had surrendered their dreams of fulfillment and accepted a life of quiet desperation. Let me tell you about the marriage most people actually have. They wake up next to someone they barely recognize. They have superficial conversations about practical matters. They fulfill their roles, husband and wife, without genuine connection. They have obligatory sex occasionally to maintain the appearance of a healthy relationship. They raise kids together while growing apart individually. They accumulate possessions and responsibilities that make leaving financially devastating. They present a happy face to the world while dying inside. They scroll through social media seeing other couples who seem happy and wonder what they're doing wrong. They celebrate anniversaries while privately mourning the loss of who they used to be. They look at single friends with secret envy disguised as pity. They fantasize about different lives while knowing they'll never pursue them. They grow old together without ever growing close, and they tell themselves this is normal, this is what marriage is, this is what everyone experiences. Because admitting the truth, that they're profoundly unhappy in a situation they chose and can't easily escape, is too painful to face directly. But here's what makes this even more complex. Some marriages genuinely work. Some couples maintain connection, passion, mutual respect, and individual growth within the structure of marriage. How? By understanding and actively fighting against these 10 harsh realities. They maintain individual identity within the partnership. They continue pursuing personal dreams alongside shared goals. They keep seeing each other as individuals rather than roles. They maintain sexual polarity through conscious effort. They express resentment before it becomes toxic. They renegotiate the relationship constantly as both people evolve. They keep their financial partnership from becoming a power struggle. They use children as an addition to their relationship rather than a replacement for it. They face the existential questions honestly and find answers together. This requires work that most people aren't willing to do. It requires honesty that most people find too painful. It requires individual psychological development that most people avoid. Schopenhauer would argue these successful marriages are rare exceptions proving the general rule. Think about what you're actually committing to when you get married. You're promising to maintain romantic love with one person until death. But romantic love is chemically similar to cocaine addiction and typically lasts 18 months to 3 years maximum. You're promising to share every aspect of life with one person. But humans change dramatically over decades, and the person you marry at 25 will be unrecognizable by 45. You're promising to forsake all others, but humans aren't naturally monogamous, and desire doesn't disappear because you signed a contract. You're promising to merge your finances. But money is the #1 cause of divorce, and financial compatibility is nearly impossible to predict beforehand. You're promising to raise children together, but parenting styles are deeply personal, and conflicts about kids destroy more relationships than anything else. You're promising to be someone's everything: their lover, best friend, co-parent, financial partner, emotional support, and social companion. But no single person can fulfill all those roles successfully. The promise itself is impossible, and Schopenhauer knew this. He saw marriage as society's attempt to force human nature into a structure it doesn't naturally fit. Here's what nobody tells you about the alternatives. Schopenhauer remained unmarried, and by all accounts lived a life of intellectual fulfillment, personal freedom, and philosophical contribution that outlasted every marriage of his era. He didn't spend his evenings negotiating with a spouse. He spent them reading, writing, thinking, creating. He didn't sacrifice his dreams for family obligations. He pursued his dreams without compromise or apology. He didn't experience the slow death of passion in a long-term relationship. He experienced various connections on his terms without obligation. He didn't lose his identity to marriage. He developed his identity fully without interference. Now, some will say he died alone, as if dying with someone nearby makes death less final or frightening. But Schopenhauer would counter that most married people die alone too. Alone in their own heads, alone in their unfulfilled potential, alone in relationships that stopped providing real connection decades ago. Physical proximity to another person doesn't prevent existential loneliness. Sometimes it makes it worse because you're lonely despite being constantly around someone. Let me be crystal clear about something. This video isn't telling you to avoid marriage or that all marriages are miserable. What this video is doing is giving you the truth that nobody else will. The unfiltered, uncomfortable, harsh reality of what marriage actually involves. Not the fantasy version you see in movies. Not the idealized version presented at weddings. Not the filtered version you see on social media. The real version. The day-to-day, year after year, decade after decade reality that most people discover too late to make informed decisions. Because here's what matters. If you know these 10 harsh realities going in, and you still choose marriage, that's a powerful choice. You're not entering blindly, you're not drunk on romantic fantasy. You're making a clear-eyed decision with full awareness of what you're signing up for. And that awareness gives you power. Power to structure your marriage differently than the default pattern. Power to maintain what matters to you while building partnership. Power to fight against the entropy that destroys most marriages. But if you don't know these realities, if you enter marriage believing the fairy tale, you're setting yourself up for catastrophic disappointment. Schopenhauer would ask you to consider one final question before making any decision about marriage. What do you actually want from life? Not what society says you should want. Not what your parents expect. Not what makes you look successful on social media. What do you, in your deepest, most honest self, actually want? Do you want freedom or partnership? Do you want individual achievement or shared experience? Do you want the intensity of new connections or the depth of long-term commitment? There's no right answer, but there is your answer, and your answer might not align with marriage. Or it might align perfectly with marriage, but only if you understand what you're actually choosing. Most people never ask themselves this question honestly. They follow the script: date, relationship, engagement, marriage, house, kids, retirement, death. They never pause to ask if this path serves their authentic desires or just satisfies social expectations. And they end up living someone else's life, following someone else's values, pursuing someone else's definition of success. Schopenhauer spent his life trying to wake people up from this sleepwalking. After learning these 10 harsh realities, you have a choice. You can dismiss this information as pessimistic, cynical, bitter. You can tell yourself your marriage will be different, special, immune to these patterns. That's one choice. Or you can take this information seriously. You can use it as a lens to examine your current relationship or future marriage plans honestly. You can ask yourself hard questions about whether you're genuinely compatible with your partner for the long-term marathon of marriage, or just compatible enough for the short-term sprint of dating. You can evaluate whether the life marriage offers is actually the life you want, or just the life you've been told to want. That's the other choice. Schopenhauer would say the second choice requires courage that most people lack. The courage to see clearly even when clarity is painful. The courage to admit truths even when they contradict your plans. The courage to choose your authentic path, even when it diverges from social expectations. But he would also say that courage creates freedom. And freedom, genuine psychological and existential freedom, is worth more than any comfort that comes from self-deception. Write in the comments right now, I choose truth over comfort. Those 5 words are a declaration that you're done accepting beautiful lies about marriage, relationships, and what creates genuine human fulfillment. That you're ready to see clearly, even when clarity is painful. That you value your authentic life more than social approval. Drop those words below and join the community of people who refuse to sleepwalk through existence. Hit subscribe because understanding these harsh realities about marriage is just the beginning. There are deeper truths about human nature, relationship dynamics, and personal freedom that most people never discover because they're too painful to face. But facing them is how you build a life of genuine meaning instead of comfortable numbness. Slam that like button if this video gave you clarity you didn't have before. And here's what's coming next. I'm going to reveal something even more fundamental about how society programs your deepest desires about relationships, and what becomes possible when you finally break free from that programming completely. This isn't just another relationship advice channel. This is about psychological liberation and building a life so authentic that pretending becomes impossible. The next video will challenge everything you believe about connection, commitment, and what it actually means to live on your own terms. Get ready, because once you see what I'm about to show you, there's no going back to comfortable ignorance. Prompt 12. Description finale SEO en inglés. Marriage is sold as completion, but Arthur Schopenhauer warned it often doubles duties while quietly having freedom. This video strips away the fantasy to reveal 10 harsh realities of married life. The slow death of autonomy, the erosion of desire, resentment through routine, financial power struggles, identity loss, and the roommate effect that arrives when children become the only common project. You'll learn why the person you marry is a performance that fades, why negotiation fatigue replaces spontaneity, and why familiarity breeds a loneliness few are willing to name. We examine rising divorce rates, the conservative pull toward safety over potential, and how shared finances become proxy battles over values, respect, and control. This isn't anti-marriage, it's pro-clarity. Couples who thrive fight consciously against these forces, preserving individual identity, protecting personal dreams, renegotiating roles as both evolve, and maintaining polarity, honesty, and financial transparency. Whether you choose partnership or freedom, informed choice beats cultural scripts every time. Watch to gain philosophical tools and practical lenses for a clear-eyed decision about commitment, so you don't trade a beautiful promise for a lifetime of quiet dissatisfaction.